Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Heroic Living Legacies. I'm your host, Caleb Kid Coy, Alchemy Slayer of Mediocrity and Heroic Family Legacy Headhunter. And I am so excited to be back with you all live. Welcome if you're joining us on LinkedIn, via the YouTube channel, or on Facebook. We're so happy you're taking time out of your day, especially on a Tuesday, to join us live. And if you're not joining us live and you've caught the replay, would love to hear from you and get your feedback. So super excited to be back here with you all. If you didn't get a chance, the initial episode we did last week with Bob Sager was phenomenal. Bob is author about a book that talks about productive, creative thinking and how to stand out in this digital age of AI. Wonderful feedback from that. Great interview and just some wonderful time together. Today, I've got another extraordinary guest back here with us. Mr. Scott Christensen is joining us today in the studio. Scott, as I bring you up, welcome. How are you today, my friend?
Hey, I'm great, Caleb. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. Every day is a gift, as you are very much aware, and just super excited to have you here in the studio with us to share your wisdom and life experience. Just love who you are as a person as well as a professional. Scott, you authored a book called Creating Financial Certainty, or Financial Certainty, I should say, in uncertain times. Did I say that right? If I bring it up here, that's going to make it easier. Financial Certainty for Life, to be more precise.
Yeah, I wrote that a couple of years ago, and I wrote it with the idea that the economic future that we're living into, at least my belief is the economic future we're living into is really quite different than anything we've experienced in the past. I've been in financial services since 1977, so I tell people I haven't seen everything, but I've seen a bunch, and I believe this new economic future has created a new financial paradigm that really requires us to look at things differently. We need to shift our paradigm. We need to look at how we go about planning for the future in a much different way.
So timely and such a critical issue to have in our forward thinking and in our discussion and just everyday conversations about legacy. A bit about you, Scott. You entered the financial services business in 1977. So with all due respect, before I was born, you've been in it for a while. Yeah. As an independent financial advisor. And throughout your career, you focused on gaining the knowledge necessary to help clients navigate the current and future economic conditions we're living in. And you just prefaced that. With 4 decades of experience, Scott's able to provide clients with the guidance and insights necessary in protecting and preserving their wealth for their benefit, as well as creating a financial legacy for the next generation and beyond. Hugely important there, Scott. Scott works with individuals, families, business owners in creating and building wealth by reducing financial risks now and in the future, as well as mitigating taxes on Social Security and retirement income. With his knowledge and expertise, he's able to help his clients design and implement innovative and strategic plans that produce maximum financial outcomes under all economic conditions. And how critically important is that, Scott? Let me talk just briefly about your book. I'm going to read the overview here, if you don't mind. And then I'd like to kind of have you highlight some of the bullet points in that book and talk to us a bit about why you wrote it. Okay. What if many of the things you thought to be true about money and planning for your financial future turned out not to be true, or at the very least, not entirely accurate? When would you want to know? What if the economic future we're living into was so different than anything we experienced in the past that it required an entirely new way of thinking? Paradigm shift, as you referenced, Scott. A new thought process that focused on creating greater financial certainty. A planning process that reduced risk to the lowest level possible on taxes now and in the future. A plan that emphasized financial efficiency instead of chasing higher market returns. What if you could design a financial plan that would work under all economic conditions, not just some of them? In the pages of Financial Certainty for Life, you will learn not only about some of the major challenges of this new economic future, but you'll gain an understanding of how every day we're unknowingly, in many cases, unnecessarily allowing wealth to be transferred away from us. Scott, it almost sounds like you're saying that somebody else out there would like to pocket the money that we've worked so hard for. What do you got to say about that?
Well, the financial processes that are in place, you got to think about, somebody told the story once, when you were young, you were taught the game of tic-tac-toe. Somebody taught that to you. In most cases, the person that taught you beat you virtually every time. It took you a long time to figure out how to win because they understood the rules of the game, and you didn't yet. They understood the strategies and the techniques, and that's the problem with planning for the financial future. Most individuals don't have a lot of the information that is critical for them to make choices that would enhance their possibility of moving forward financially in a way that they really would like. They're being, I call it educated and consumerized. And by that, educated, the vast majority of people, they don't teach much on finance in high school and even in college. It's a kind of trial by error process. And so as a result, you're not given enough information. So the information you do get comes from the marketing processes of the financial institutions that stand to gain the most by you following their advice. And therein lies the problem, is that you've been led to believe certain things about how money works and how you should plan for the future. And if you think about it, most of the people that are teaching you are the ones that want you to give them your money. And over my career, I've come to find out that many of the things that I was taught and educated about to help my clients move forward financially, many of those things didn't actually work. And that was quite a revelation for me when I came to that realization that there was not enough financial certainty in the process of providing financial advice to people. I began at that time to really look around and say, okay, what's missing here? What do we need to do to create greater financial certainty? Why should we reduce risk instead of taking risk? Why should we reduce taxation to the lowest level possible instead of just going ahead and paying whatever the tax man said was due? What if we could create a scenario where we could create greater financial certainty by actually taking less risk and creating a plan of financial efficiency? Because most people don't have an idea of what that really means. What does financial efficiency mean? And quite simply, it's this: having every dollar create as much value, maximum values wherever possible, and having every dollar do multiple jobs. And that's kind of a weird concept, but we want every dollar to be working as hard as it can for us and doing multiple things if possible. And so there's some concepts there that we teach, that I try and teach my clients and the individuals that I train, how to help people understand that process, how to create a scenario where every dollar is doing more for you.
That's huge, Scott. I mean, getting our money to work for us instead of having to spend our lives working for our money is a huge dynamic that unfortunately a lot of folks don't figure out until later in life, or until it's too late ultimately. How many years did it take you, Scott, where, this trial and error, right, of failures, of trying something that didn't work the way you thought or hoped, before you felt like you finally had an implementable strategy in place, a foundation, a blueprint, if you will, that you could build upon?
Well, I think you first have to understand that I was a traditional thinker and planner for the first 20 plus years of my career. And there was a couple of events that happened about midway through the process. In 1999, for example, I was telling someone the other day, I had helped many of my clients into a couple of mutual funds that in 1999, they doubled in value. In other words, that there was over 100% return. So if they had $100,000 in their account using these two mutual funds, they now have $200,000 in their account. And that was an amazing time. And I thought, this is the way to go. This is so powerful. I'd been in the business since 1977, so I was in my 23rd year when that happened.
Wow.
Well, next year in 2000, the market went down. Well, that happens every once in a while. Went down about 10%. The following year, about 12%. The following year, about 15%. So the market went down 3 years in a row, and it literally wiped out all those gains. So in 1999, people thought I was a pretty smart financial advisor. By 2002, they're not so sure. The question that came to my mind is, and by the way, this is the other thing about this: the economic future we're living into is far different. In my previous 25 years, there'd only been 2 down years in the market, so I'd never experienced that. So everything that everybody said seemed to be working, but now the game changed, and I was told, "Hey, tell people just calm down. It's going to be fine. The market's going to come back," which it did, only to be hit again in 2008, a 37% downturn in the market. So I've experienced some things that very few people had experienced prior to that period of time, particularly financial planners. And as a result, I had to transform my practice, Caleb. I had to look at, all right, this doesn't work, because you have to remember, in 1999, I've got clients thinking they can retire in a year or 2 or 3, meaning if they were close, they say, okay, I can do it. But 3 years later, they're going, I can't retire. I have to keep working. To me, that wasn't a very sound financial plan. I wanted to find something that would help overcome that challenge, the risk of uncertainty. So for me and the people that I consult with, it's all about where are you at, where are you trying to get to, what products and services are you using to get there, how have you integrated the process, how have you coordinated it? Is there coordination? Because most people, they've got money over in this account doing this thing, you got money in that account doing that thing, and there's no integration, there's no coordination between the process. And when you coordinate and integrate, you create greater financial efficiency. And so that's kind of what began the process of where I'm at today. I went looking for thought processes, concepts that would, again, reduce risk to the lowest level possible. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and reduce what we send off to the tax man. And a couple of other things that making every dollar do more than one job. These types of things came into existence, and it completely changed my practice, and it changed the lives of the people that I began to work with.
Scott, you used 2 terms I loved: coordinate and integrate. Very, very, very powerful, and obviously a very strategic process. And as I've started to get to know you, I can see why and understand why. We often hear statistically that 80%. I've got another insurance mentor retired who's same age as you approximately, and one day we were talking, and he said, Caleb, back when I got started in insurance, near 40 years ago, approximately 80% of agents were failing, and he said it's not too different today. In your humble opinion, Scott, do you feel that the reason that a lot of agents continue to fail in this industry is because of their inability to pivot or adapt? And what would you say to them where they may be lacking or struggling that could be a game changer in the way that they go about, acquiring clients or building their business?
Well, I don't know if it's so much that they lack the ability to pivot. I think one of the challenges is when you say, the vast majority of people entering the financial services arena, particularly the insurance side of it, fail. That still is, and that number, the percentage is actually higher than 80%. It's about 94, 95% that don't survive 3 or 4 or 5 years in the business. I think the real reason is that they're being taught the same thing. They're not being taught anything different. And, we have to back up a little bit and understand that in the last 40 plus years, there has been a lot of changes in this country. Okay? And one of the things that people don't recognize or realize is that, for example, individual retirement accounts, IRAs, they weren't created until 1972 or so. They didn't even exist. And when they were originally put in place, you had to buy an insurance company annuity because they were safe and secure. In other words, it had guarantees in it. Now we fast forward to 1980 and the 401k comes into existence. Again, it's a brand new process. Prior to that time, most people worked for companies that either had a pension, and if they had a pension, the company put the money away, somebody else managed it, and they guaranteed the payout. In other words, guarantees. We don't have many companies like that today. As a result of that, the 401k brought into focus this idea that if you put the money away, great. But if you don't, that's your problem. If your company matches, great. But if it doesn't, not the government's problem, not anybody's problem, but yours. If the market takes some of it away at any time, or at an inopportune time, or while you're in retirement, not anybody's problem but yours. In other words, we shifted from being taken care of to being completely on our own, but we weren't given the tools and the knowledge and the information to really move forward. We're looking to TV pundits who's when you watch any of these financial shows, check who the advertisers are. It's the people that want you to give them their money, and their goal is to have you give them your money. They want to keep it for as long as possible and give it back to you as slowly as possible. In other words, they want control of your funds. Yeah. And I'm suggesting that people take a more proactive look at how that process works, and then maybe we design something that puts them in control.
Putting people in the driver's seat of their legacy sounds a bit familiar there, Scott, and I love that ideal. And I'm just going to gloat on you a little bit for a minute, because one of the immediate things that I noticed about Scott, and I think what attracted and drew us to one another, was number one, his teachable spirit. And there's plenty of folks out there who may not even be Scott's age, who have lost the ability to learn or the desire to learn. And immediately in beginning to communicate with Scott, I saw how open-minded he was and had a desire to learn. In fact, it was estate planning that actually brought us together a little bit. Well, we'll talk about that some down the road here, Scott. But your willingness and your open-mindedness was refreshing, especially in our industry, Scott. How have you maintained a teachable spirit and a desire to learn more as you go? Because obviously you've figured out through trial and error what works and what works well, but yet you are still open-minded and you're always seeking to learn. Talk to us a bit about that.
Well, I think that's partly in my nature, is that, by the way, I don't know if I'm frozen on your screen, but I'm frozen on mine.
You do look a little frozen, but we can still hear you.
All right, perfect. So I think by my very nature, I'm curious and want to expand my knowledge and understanding. And because of, I was pretty happy as a traditional financial planner until things didn't work out the way that I thought they should have. And that's when everything really began to change for me. So the last 20 plus years, I've actually moved my practice ever so gently and slightly in different directions. There we go. Looks like I'm moving now. I've continued to transform my practice because, again, try not to repeat this too many times, but the idea of the economic future being different. We are not living into the last 40 years. We are living into an entirely new 40-year period, for example. And everything has changed. I mean, the baby boom generation, which came along 1946 to 1964, 80 million, 75 to 80 million individuals. Our parents bought more cars, they built bigger houses, etc. In other words, we expanded the economy because of our births, so to speak. Then when we got into the workforce, we expanded the workforce significantly, and we have stimulated the economy in a manner that no other generation ever has for the last 40 years. Now we're every day 10 to 12,000 baby boomers turn 65. And we're continuing to do that at a very rapid pace. And right behind us is the Generation Xers. So currently there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 or 90 million retirees or people over 65. And in the next couple of decades, we're going to see that balloon to maybe 130 to 140 million people. Well, that might be a third of the population of the United States. That's a way different demographic than what things were in 1946, 1966, 1996. The demographics are different, not only in this country, but worldwide. And we also have something else that has changed the world, and that is the internet, the interconnectivity, and how, we do business with people in other countries all the time. That's very routine. So as a result of all this, the economic future is way different. You cannot look at the past and say, well, this is what happened in the past, and it's pretty predictable that's going to happen in the future. That is not the case. And so as a result, I think that we have to be willing to really shift our thinking. And again, back to this idea, how can I create certainty in an uncertain economic world? That's the focus, and that's the key.
Scott, it's not an easy topic because agents and advisors within our industry in general have often relied on look back models, if you will, on historical returns. But as you've just mentioned, there's so much volatility in our world now that those same returns may not necessarily look like what they did the past 20, 30, 40 years. So, what do you tell people who are going, well, I have this person or this advisor talk to me and tell me, this particular product did this, before, without scaring them, but still creating that sense of security and hope that they can have a retirement future, that they will be okay, that maybe, they will be able to pass on an inheritance to their children's children.
Yeah, the really cool thing is there are solutions, but we have to have more understanding. Going back to the idea of pensions. See, when you retire and you have a pension, you get that check every single month. It comes in no matter what. Okay. And it's the same amount every single month. And you're never going to run out of money because the pension says we will pay you this money for the rest of your life. And if you have a spouse, we'll pay it depending upon how you set it up, it'll pay for the rest of the spouse's life. Now, fast forward to the 401k, which is completely market driven. And during the accumulation phase, the market will impact your accumulation process in various ways. Your account value will go up, it'll go down, but generally speaking, over the last 40 years, the account values have gone, they've ebbed slightly up during that period of time. Some periods much faster, then there'll be a reversal and a decline, then it'll work back up and so forth. But now let's fast forward to the distribution phase. Now market volatility plays an extremely different role. And the challenge at that point becomes one of what happens when you have a downturn. Let's say you've got $500,000 in your 401k and you're pulling out $20,000, $30,000 a year to supplement your retirement, and the market has a 20 or a 30% decline in that year. So if you've got $500,000 and the market just lost 20%, that's a $100,000 loss. Plus you pulled out $30,000 or $20,000 to supplement your retirement because you thought you could, because that's what they told you. When I say they, the powers that be, they said, hey, you can take 6% out of your account. I mean, you've been earning, you've been led to believe that you've been earning at least 6%. And so, hey, take 6% out, you'll be fine. But now, all of a sudden, your account's down $130,000. If you lose $130,000 out of a $500,000 retirement plan, you have some serious issues there. And because next year you're going to want to take some more money out, but now you can't take 30,000 out. You maybe only take 15, but now you've got to change your lifestyle. In other words, the volatility of the market during what we call the distribution phase, the retirement phase, could absolutely destroy your retirement because it's not safe, it's not certain, it's not consistent. But no one shows you that because the vast majority of financial planning processes use math to predict the future. So they don't show the ups and the downs because they can't predict them. So they say, well, listen, the market has averaged over the last 25 years, maybe 8 or 9%. That might be the average, but what was the effective yield? And people don't understand the difference. So we teach people the difference between average return versus effective yield. But that effective yield, when you're in the distribution phase, still, if you're subject to market risk and market loss, I've shown people models that over the last 25 years, if you'd have retired in 1999 and tried to take 6% per year out of your account, you would run out of money somewhere between 13 and 17 years into the future. That no one showed people those models. Now there are products and services and processes and concepts that can overcome that, but you can't solve a problem that you're not aware of. You're not even trying to solve the problem because you don't even know it exists.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to help people understand, is that there is a problem and it does exist. And once you understand what it can do to your retirement, once you know that, wouldn't you want to do something different? It's kind of like if something you thought to be true about money turned out not to be, when would you want to know? Well, immediately, right?
Now, you're not busting our bubble here, are you, Scott, and telling us that the financial services industry does not have a crystal ball into the future? I thought you'd appreciate a little sarcasm there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what I'd like to ask you about, Scott, is obviously in your vast experience, you've helped a few clients that maybe experience one of these 20, 30, 40+%, losses in the market. How did you take them, without giving away all the secrets, how did you take them from a place of panic to peace of mind again, where they knew they could rebuild and regrow that, not only get it back, but maybe go above and beyond what they lost?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but I think one of the major processes or concepts is to identify the cash flows. Where's all the money going? Okay. And as a part of that, you're identifying what I call wealth transfers, money that leaves your checking account never to return.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's that, for example, a car payment. Now we've got to have cars. We have to have those. Most people don't pay cash for cars. They finance them. And so the wealth transfer occurs in the payment. So when you make a payment to the finance company or the credit union or the bank, that $500, $600 a month payment, that leaves your checking account and it never comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is what we call a wealth transfer. Now there's something else that we calculate on top of that. There's the lost opportunity cost. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you didn't have that car payment, you could take that $500 a month and you could put it in the bank and maybe get some interest on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could get 3%, which is what interest rates were, or 2% several years ago, now they're up to 5%. But if you get, say, 5%, if we don't worry about taxation right now, you could build up a pretty decent little sum of money every 4 to 5 years during the time that you normally would have been paying for a car. Mm-hmm. So if we could identify all the financial leaks in your life, if we could identify all the wealth transfers in your life, by the way, taxes are a wealth transfer. Absolutely. Now, do we need taxes? Yes, we do. Is there any requirement that you pay any more tax than is absolutely necessary? Well, the tax law says no. It says, hey, listen, here's the taxes, here's the deductions, here's the quote loopholes, if you will. And if you take advantage of these, you can reduce your tax bill. So that's what we help people understand, is that there are legitimate ways to reduce your tax bill. And quite interestingly enough, one of the things that our government has done is they've done a great job of educating us and teaching us that what we should be doing, because we don't want to pay much in taxes, is that we should be taking a deduction for our contribution for our 401k and deferring the tax into the future. That's a whole nother discussion as to whether that makes sense or not. But there's some simple math things that you can do that will help you understand that depending upon whatever tax brackets are in the future will actually determine whether that was a good idea or not. Mm. And I ask people all the time, I said, do you think taxes in the future are going to be higher or lower? And it comes back a resounding 99.9% of the people think that taxes are going to be higher. So if taxes are going to be higher in the future, why would we want to defer our retirement income into the future, into a time where it might cause our Social Security to be taxed? A lot of people don't know this, but Social Security was never designed to be taxed. Yet here we are paying tax on 50 to 85% of it, depending upon how much income we make. There's just so many things that people are not aware of, or even if they're aware of it, they don't understand the tremendous negative financial impact.
What's your best guesstimate, Scott, percentage-wise, on clients that come to you and had been significantly overpaying on taxes in the past, and you were able to help them lower that? Just to give people an idea of how many people out there are overpaying on taxes.
Well, here's the thing about that, is that every circumstance is quite different. Mm-hmm. But what we find is people are using the tax law, such as getting a deduction or putting in money pre-tax into a 401k. they're using tax law to benefit them without understanding the future ramifications. So it's not even about so much reducing taxes right now. It's about understanding, if I create greater financial efficiency, I don't need to save as much money ultimately, because I'm not losing it to risk and I'm not losing it to taxation. But even if I lose some to taxation, one of the worst things that I think people could do, and maybe that's probably an exaggeration, but one of the challenges that I see for people is that we're willing to take a deduction today because we don't want to pay much in taxes today, and defer that taxation off into the future, when it actually has a greater impact on us in the future, particularly if tax brackets are significantly higher. And this is the challenge that we've had in the last 40 years, because in the last 40 years, we've had the lowest marginal tax bracket this country has ever had since before the Great Depression. When the tax code first started in 1913, the top bracket was 7%. But it didn't take very long for Congress and the government to decide that they needed higher tax brackets. And there's a whole story behind that. But from the 30s through the late 70s, we had top marginal tax brackets in this country over 70%. Top bracket today is 37%. Now, most people don't believe that, but you can Google it, you can check it out. And there was a couple of periods where it was much higher than 70%. Now, there was lots of deductions during that period of time, and there weren't a lot of people making a ton of money at the level that it was going to be taxed. But most of the people that are alive today did not experience those high tax bracket years. And unfortunately, we're heading back in that direction. And it may catch people very, very much off guard, because when you ask people what's the highest marginal tax bracket this country's ever had, most of them say 30%. Some say 40. When right now we're at 37, and that's one of the lowest top marginal tax brackets that we've had since 1978 or 79. Prior to that, it was all above 70%. And people just don't know that. And if that's the case, if we're heading back to a period where marginal tax brackets are 45, 55, 65, 70%, most people can't even imagine that. They can't imagine our government doing that, but our government did do that. And I'm not, I mean, we could all get mad at the government. Governments do what governments do. But at the same time, they also pass laws that give us options. I need to understand what the options are. I want to share with you what the options are. And then let's see which of those options we can utilize to create the greatest financial efficiency for you.
I love that, Scott. What's it going to take for people to shift away from the instant gratification mindset into this long-term legacy strategy thinking? Obviously, you and I share that. I could easily say you're my uncle from another funkle. I'm trying to look for a word that rhymes there, but we share that, and that's not an easy thing to learn. My parents didn't have that. I had to be the guy in the family to shift that trajectory and mindset. But what's it take? Because we do live in this quick fix, fast food American society. And as you said, people want that money now. They want that instant gratification. So they're not always thinking long-term legacy mindset. What would you say to them?
Well, that's one of the reasons that we've created some of the processes that we have, the family legacy system, the family banking system, because people don't really want to change their habits a whole lot. I mean, if they could, wave a magic wand, they just kind of get to retirement and say, okay, now I want everything to be different. They don't want to really live different lives. So what we have to do is work within the framework of normal existence. There's going to be you're going to have expenses. For example, a young couple meets, they're going to get married, they're going to start working, they're going to start saving, they're going to start looking to buy a house, they're going to start having children. Those children are going to want to get into dance or band or soccer or football or whatever it is. There's college education, there's weddings. There's more cars. There's going from the sports car to the minivan to the Suburban. All those things.
I don't know what you're talking about, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have to fit the process into the natural flow of life.
Mm.
And that's what we try and do. I mean, there's some thought processes out there that you need to sacrifice, rice and beans. I don't actually subscribe to that, because I don't, most people give up. And it's not that they're not willing to sacrifice, but they're not willing to sacrifice, at least not for the length of time that it takes. So what if we could integrate and coordinate a process that took the cash flows that people already had? Where's money going? It's going to car payments, credit card payments, student loans, et cetera, et cetera. You line it all up and you say, okay, where can we begin to consolidate things? Where can we begin to create margins or discretionary income? And what are we going to do with that discretionary income? Are we going to start going out to dinner more, or are we going to start allocating it to a financial plan? And what does that financial plan incorporate? Does it incorporate taking risks to the lowest level? Does it incorporate reducing taxes? Is it taking a dollar and using it to provide not only more benefits but multiple benefits? So that here's an example: you put money into a 401k. How many jobs is it doing? Well, it's doing one, but we have no idea whether it's efficient or not, because we have no idea what the ultimate return is going to be. And we have no idea what the ultimate tax is going to be. What if we got money in a money market account? How many jobs is it doing? Well, it's doing one. Is it very efficient? Well, interest rates probably, it might be a little higher now, but it was, less than a 0.5%, less than 0.25%. So that's very inefficient. Plus, those dollars are taxable. They were taxed as ordinary income. So to compound, insult on injury, is that very, very inefficient. Could we have stored that money in another place? And we talk to people about, where are you storing your money, and what job did you assign it when you stored it there? And let's identify, is it efficient? Is it creating multiple benefits? Is it, at the very least, is it creating maximum benefits for you? And in most cases, we find out that that's not the case. So we reposition assets all the time.
And I love that approach, Scott, especially from a mindset perspective. Obviously, right? You mentioned this. It's so hard for people to make a drastic shift or change, but they're able to accommodate something that's maybe, micro steps, or it allows them to continue living within their means, or, their habits that they've accrued, if you will, whether good or bad. And that's so incredibly huge. And it's often said that, we can't put a price on our health, which I 100% agree. And you could probably talk for an hour about that yourself. But obviously, there's no price that we can put on our peace either, our internal peace. And we're living in such uncertain times and so much, volatility that we can't predict. That peace of mind is extraordinarily important. And so in your book, Financial Certainty for Life, you basically talked about, I believe, 8 different areas, correct, that you have people focus in on. Would you like to highlight those for us and just talk to us for a few minutes about that?
Well, and I don't have the book in front of me, and you may have it in front of you, although I could grab one here. In fact, if you don't mind, let me do that. We'll just talk about that.
Grab it. It sounds good.
All right.
Guys, this is just such valuable information today. I hope you're taking notes, or go back and rewatch the replay. Really, really important to take hold of and start implementing these things.
So there's the book. When I wrote the book, it was with the idea that people needed to be aware that the economic future was different. Okay, and I didn't write the book so much to provide solutions as to really alert people that the economic future is different, and that they needed to shift their thinking. And so I tried to identify some of the things that would be that would help people understand that, no, we're not living into the last 40 years. We're living into the next 40 years. And here's some of the things that we have as challenges. And it's a short read. It's an easy read. I designed it that way because I didn't want people to get bogged down in things. I wanted them to really just have an overview of, okay, there's some things different out there. And so there's only about 7 or 8 chapters in the whole book. And it says, in chapter 1, we talk about the economic and how it's different, how demographics are changing. You look at some of the countries around the world. One of the things that has impacted the country of Japan is they have an aging population, and they did not replace. They didn't have very many children. 1 or 2 children was the norm. Certainly not 3 or 4 like we have in many parts of the United States. So their aging population, they have never come out of their recession that started back in 1989. They have never come out of it because their population is growing older by the day, and there's not enough people to stimulate the economy. China has 500 million baby boomers. A third of their population is baby boomers, and they only had 1 child. So there's not enough people coming up behind them. We see all the time that there's indications that the Chinese economy is struggling. They went out and they created massive cities that nobody lives in. Okay, so the economic future is different. The next chapter is identifying financial myths, because there really are things that you think and believe to be true about money that are absolutely not. And it's not your fault. And the reason it's not your fault is because you have been educated and consumerized by individuals that they didn't have your best interest in mind, or they had their interest in mind more than yours. And you didn't realize that. Okay. And so if we help people understand those financial myths, one of the biggest ones is that the market, when we talk about the market, for example, the S&P 500, the Dow, averaging 8 or 9%, and then we use that number in our math calculations to see how things are going to be in the future. It's not a true and correct number. There is a number called the effective yield. That number is the true number. And when you start looking closely at how the future is predicted by traditional financial models and thinking, you begin to understand that it's way off. It's probably 20 to 30% off, number one, and that doesn't include the fees and the taxation and so forth. So we really have to go in and look at some of these financial truths and expose them as potentially myths or very misunderstood or misused. The other thing is that we have to understand how financial institutions think. I alluded to it earlier. They want you to give them your money. They want to keep it for as long as possible. They want to give it back to you as slowly as possible. Why do they want that? Well, because it benefits them. Now, I'm not saying that the financial institutions are wicked, evil, greedy institutions. What I'm saying is that they're doing what they believe is viable for them. And if we're going to use, we live in a world where we have financial institutions and we have certain things that we have to money is the medium of exchange, currency, et cetera. We have to live within those guidelines to a degree. And so it does us no good to say, well, those people are bad. That's not only is it not true, it's probably not really the case. It's just that we don't understand how to utilize the financial institutions and the structures that they've set up to our advantage. But once we teach you that, you need checking accounts, you need savings accounts, you need life insurance, you need these things. But let us show you how to utilize them for your advantage as opposed to the financial institutions. Okay. We've talked a little bit about wealth transfers. This idea of every tax you pay is a wealth transfer. Every debt payment you pay is a wealth transfer. But then there's the attendant lost opportunity cost, all the money you could have had. We have a calculator that we show someone starting out at $50,000 a year of income when they're 25 years old, getting a 2 or 3% raise over their lifetime. They're going to end up making pretty decent money. They'll make maybe between $2.5 to $3, maybe even $4 million over their working lifetime. But if you start taking out taxes, all of a sudden that $4 million drops to $1 million. You start taking out all the debt service. It drops another $1.5 million. And when you look at how it actually takes place, it matches up with the average 401k right now has somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 or $70,000 in it. That's not enough to take people where they need to go. Okay? So understanding how financial institutions work, understanding the wealth transfers, and there's another thing that we teach people. It's the how versus where. Most people look at, where am I going to put my money? I'm going to put some money in Bitcoin. I'm going to put some money in my 401k. I'm going to put some money in real estate. They're looking at where to put money when they probably should be asking an equally important and maybe even more important question. That is, how should I position my money? Should I position my money in a tax-deferred account? Should I position my money in a tax-free account? Should I position my money it's going to be taxed as long-term capital gains? And what about the cash flows that each of these entities create? How are they going to be taxed? So positioning, how you position your money is in many cases far more important than where you put your money. So, that's kind of there's 2 or 3 other chapters here. We teach people that once you understand financial certainty, then you can begin to create what we call a multiplier effect. Again, having every dollar do more than one job. And that's kind of the general overview of the book. Again, it's only like 70 or 80 pages long, as I recall. It's exactly 70 pages. It's 70 pages long. Again, it wasn't designed to provide a lot of solutions. It was designed and written to make you aware so that you understand that if you keep doing what you're doing, you may not get the results that you think you're going to get because things are different. So that's kind of a brief overview of the book.
That's good stuff, guys. And if you'd like to get a copy of that book, you can find Financial Certainty for Life on Amazon. I encourage you to go over there and do that. Scott, time went by so fast that we got just a few more minutes. And as we're kind of wrapping things up, I did want to make sure that we have the opportunity to talk to the folks about something that's a very, very important element of this overall planning scope. And it's part of the reason that you and I met and came together through our mutual friend, David, was this estate planning aspect. And as you know, you found an agent and advisor that is a part of the organization that I have been working with for 11 years. I've been friends with the founder, hard to believe, for 18 years now. Met him at a financial conference in Houston. But estate planning, family legacy and estate planning, helping families avoid the agonies of probate, such a huge, crucial, and important aspect of the overall plan. Talk to us for just a couple minutes on the impact that this is having in your practice and how you're seeing it benefits family and why it's so important that they have a good living trust and legacy plan in place.
Well, I think it's important. We're in the process of building and creating an estate. Now, some people may think you don't have an estate unless you have more than $1 million or $2 million or 10 million or whatever. But I don't care if you've got $2, you have an estate. Okay, may not be a big estate, but you've got it. So we spend our life trying to move forward financially, and the challenge is making sure that we protect and preserve it. And one of the things that I think people don't understand is how easy it is for everything you've put together to get just completely dismantled and destroyed, basically, because we didn't put things in place to give guidance to the next generation. We didn't create a plan. We may have done some planning to get to the point where we've got some cash, we've got some assets, we've got some capital and so forth. But when we're gone, what legacy did we leave behind? Did we leave behind a legacy of just assets and capital, or did we leave behind a legacy of understanding that helps with the distribution process, that continues to One of the things that we teach our clients is what I call generational tax-free wealth. And there's a process we call leveraging the value of certainty. And I won't go into a lot of detail today, but the idea is the vast majority of middle class has never been taught to think generationally and to pass wealth on generationally, because there seems to be some stigma about leaving money behind. I don't want to leave my kids rich. Nobody left me anything, etc. But when taught proper financial principles, and when people learn how to move forward generationally and keep the wealth in the family, the story is told of the Vanderbilt family, and in 1873 or so, Cornelius Vanderbilt was the richest guy on the planet. Here we fast forward 100 years, and there are very few millionaires in the Vanderbilt family. And as a result, because he didn't set up a system to keep the assets intact, and he didn't create a system to recapitalize generationally. And that's something that we teach. So back to what you were talking about, the estate planning is very, very important, and making sure that there's a distribution process and a protection process put in place. And so we started using this platform of helping people understand the pitfalls of not having an estate plan, of not having wills and trusts, the value of wills and trusts, and how to coordinate them properly, and then using a digital platform to do that, which is revolutionary. It's 21st century, and that is starting to, once again, I believe my practice is being transformed by technology innovation. There's this, we've gone through many periods of creative destruction over the past 150 years. And I like to, and I'll give this example. And that is, so most of us grew up with playing records. I should say that. The baby boom generation grew up playing records. Then we went to 8-track tapes. Then we went to cassette tapes. Then we went to CDs. Then we went to iPods. Now everything's streaming. So we've, over time, the music industry has been completely deconstructed, and we're experiencing in real time creative destruction of an industry. And that's what's happening in multiple industries, multiple scenarios around the world. And that's what we have to help people understand, is that's the economic future we're living into. So back to this idea of a digital platform for will and trust and estate planning, to be able to go online and create the wills and the trust the way that we want to, and then in real time go in and make adjustments to them, is really a powerful thing. So we're showing that to our clients, and it's being received with tremendous appreciation.
Love that, Scott. Thanks so much for sharing that. Everybody, Scott Christensen, brother, so grateful to have you spend this time with us today. So much wisdom to glean, and so much important education that we need to learn, and mindset shifts that we need to. I know I'll be going back and re-listening to this, guys. I would encourage you to do the same. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Share this with friend, family member, somebody you love, somebody who needs to have more understanding and more empowerment in this arena. And guys, if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to get some type of assessment, please, if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, direct message me. Scott and I are here to serve you. We're here to empower you. We legitimately care about seeing humanity bettered and protected so that they can have a future in these uncertain times. So Scott, thanks again, guys. Until next time, I'm your host, Caleb Kid Coy. Get out there and love, give, live, and serve, because our legacy is so much more than just our finances. It's how we're remembered once we're gone. We appreciate y'all. And until next time, take care.
Thanks, Caleb. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.